Hello, and welcome to Aesop Grimm's Chronicles, where the emphasis is on immersion and storytelling. While some games contain mature themes or language, you can expect clean commentary from me as a narrator. Additionally, I will provide a content summary in the intro video for each chronicled series, so no one is blindsided or surprised. Let's play a story. Welcome everybody, this is Aesop Grimm, and this is the intro video for our Elite Dangerous Chronicle. This is Chronicle number 1 for this game. And let's go ahead and do a content brief, and then we'll talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing in this game. So I looked it up, and I'm looking at it right now. It says it's rated T for teen by ESRB. Online interactions are not rated by ESRB, and this is an online game, so you have an opportunity to chat via text or get onto audio comms with other players. But in contrast to EVE Online, I think this game is a lot more. It kind of pushes you in more of a what do you call it, a solo or maybe a small group environment as opposed to EVE Online. But it is rated T for teen because of drug reference and fantasy violence. The rating summary says this is an online role-playing game in which players pilot a spaceship through a variety of missions around the Milky Way galaxy. Players can engage in mining, exploration, trade, and various combat missions. Some missions task players with destroying specific figures or ships for profit. Combat is depicted from a first-person perspective with spaceships shooting lasers, machine guns, and missiles at target ships. Combat is highlighted by gunfire and explosions. Players can trade several different items in space stations, including items labeled as narcotics. Okay, that'll do it for the content brief. I think that gives you enough of a heads up to make an informed decision for yourself. We will now press on to, I guess, my thoughts on this game in general. I have played this game a little bit. I learned how to avoid opal mine, which as I understand it, this is January of 2020. It's actually February of 2020. And void opal mining has been nerfed, as it probably needed to be. I don't know. There's an argument on that, and I don't know enough about the game to really understand all the arguments. But even though it's been nerfed, it's still lucrative from what I read. I also was beginning to speak with the first engineer I'd met, and I was working on getting my frame shift drive upgraded, and so I was kind of learning how to use the SRV on Planet to find items. I'm still not really very good at that, but I was learning a lot, and that's about the time that I stopped. Because I got my computer rebuilt and I got a 4K monitor, and things weren't quite recording the same. And so we're going to give 4K a shot, 4K native resolution a shot on this game. I suspect it'll be all right, but that's something I have to test out, and you'll know it in the first episode. I'll tell you, let's say it goes wrong. Okay, so pretty much at the beginning of the episode, then I'll tell you, hey, I tried it. It didn't work well. I had to scrap my character, start a new one. And so we're downscaling this to 1920 by 1080. But if I don't mention it right off the bat, chances are it worked. And I haven't mentioned it because I didn't delete that video. And so it's at the end of the video whenever I'll go and I'll review it to see how, if it recorded without stutters and stuff like that. So there's a heads up on that. What else? My basic outline of a plan is going, I think for Chronicle #1, I'm going to do this game. I know a lot less about this game than I do EVE Online, and I don't know much about EVE Online, so that should tell you something. This game, let's talk about the game in general. This game is pretty fascinating to me. I've said in my EVE Online playthrough that a lot of people argue over, or they're not arguing, but they're trying to find out which one should I play? Should I play EVE or should I play Elite Dangerous? And my conclusion has been play them both. They are different games, but they're kind of similar enough, related enough that it's they feel like they're connected in some fashion, but you get a different experience from each one. With Eve, I think I kind of feel like I'm not really quite sure how to put it, so I'm kind of going to describe what I have in my mind and hope you guys can translate that. The systems in place, the details of the modules, the mechanics of the game and how everything works together, and the way the world functions and the news of the world gets out there, the lore of the game is available for you to read. All that stuff is done to the nines. It's a really, really deep game, and how those modules function really alters a lot, and it has a very real feel to it because everything's so science based, it seems. It reads like you're looking at a list of NASA parts you're going to put together for a mission to Mars or something. Eh, and the different kinds of parts you have, and they'll give you descriptions of what they do and how they work, like the base mechanic that they work on. And then they have these attributes, and it just kind of pulls you in. It's a very, very detailed game where they seem to have thought everything through to the nth degree at each level of the game, and all of it connects pretty seamlessly. And that's what's going to happen when you have a game that's like a couple decades old. With Elite Dangerous, you're in a first person perspective, and right away, with the updated graphics and the fact that you're in a first person perspective, you can fly into right off. Let me start this with the first person perspective. It already feels more immersive. Eve feels more third person, more detached, because it's from a third person perspective, and maybe feels like it's done at more of what you call the operational level, where Elite Dangerous feels like it's more at the tactical level. It's front lines. You're right in it, from being first person. And then on top of that, it's a huge environment that's actually bigger than Eve, even though it covers a smaller space. It covers the Milky Way galaxy, but it covers it. It's an actual model of the real Milky Way galaxy, and there's just thousands of systems you can fly into, and you can go to each planet, and you can survey them and discover them, and some of the graphics, the lights and shadows, the way they play off each other they can be stunning. You can land on planets and get out and explore them. It just offers things that you cannot experience in Eve, and so it's a different experience. And it's complex. In fact, I'm a little bit nervous about doing this playthrough. I've been putting it off because I haven't played the game in a while, and I remember how complex it was and stuff that I'll have to look up. And can I do this without it being really clunky and awkward? I'm not really sure. But the complexity of the game is one of the beauties of it. You really do feel like you're piloting your ship as you learn different things about it, and you have to retract your landing gear before you take off. You have to retract your hard points. There's just a boatload of systems that you can go through. Not a boatload, but there's a lot of systems you can go through with your ship that in order to manage it properly. So it lends itself to a virtual reality, I think is the way that I would put it. And so that's what we're going to see with Elite Dangerous. And I think that getting into the plan for this Chronicle, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out in the new player the new player only zone, and we're going to do each of the kinds of missions minus the SRV missions, just because I don't really know what I'm doing with that right now. But we'll do all the other kinds to get a taste of what the game has to offer, sort of, and maybe build up some initial capital. And then we're going to buy an Explorer. I used to get, like, my standard move was to get an Asp. Yeah, that's the Explorer. It's like an all-around ship. It can do a little bit of everything. Not the Asp. It started with an A. It's an early ship. Is it the Anaconda? No, it's the Adder. I'm pretty sure it was called the Adder. I would get the Adder because you could do pretty much anything in the Adder. It's a good all-around ship. But I think this time around I'm going to buy the Hauler because it's got a long jump space, jump distance, and then we're going to go do what's called the Road to Riches, which will help us earn some initial capital. This will be after we exit the new pilot zone. That'll help us earn some initial capital so that we can get into an Asp Explorer, and then we will use that Asp Explorer to go see if we can find void opals. So I think that's the initial plan. I don't think I want to get into doing the engineers yet because I don't know I don't feel confident in it. I don't know what I'm doing with that. Um, it's like I know how to go find Felicity Farseer. I can land it. I can get out there and see her. I know how to start the project and pin the item, the recipe that you need for improving your frame shift drive. And you have to do this, I think, a series of 5 times. Where I'm stuck right now, and it's tedious enough that it's a bit of a grind, and I don't like it. But I want to accomplish the end goal of upgrading my frame shift drive. But where I'm stuck is landing the SRV on a planet. Like, first you have to find which planets have the materials you need, and then you have to use your SRV in a way that you can use that radar and home in on where a specific material is at. You have to be able to discern that between the signal types of other materials. And then you have to be able to collect it. And I was getting there whenever I was playing this last, but I'm really iffy on it, man. I think I'm going to have to relearn how to do that, and I'm not looking forward to that. That I think that's kind of one of the things that's been holding me off on that. So on this game, so I will probably make that part of Chronicle 2. But this game, I feel about this game, we'll wrap it up with this. I feel about this game the way that I felt about Eve circa 2007 to say 2014. I would jump into Eve, and I always felt like this game has so much potential. It's there. The structure is there. The stories that can come out of this game. There's a way to just disappear into this world. There's a lot on the table here, and if it can just be drawn together. Eve Online to me felt like you had all of the ingredients and the tools necessary to make an amazing professional level 9-course meal. But you had to figure out sort of what order does that get put together in? How do I do it? And that's the part where you would fail at. Like, how do I mix this stuff together? And then at what stage should I pour it in? How long do I let it bake for? You had all the materials and you knew what the end vision should look like, and everything was there to do that. But how to make it all happen and draw it all together kind of eluded you. Now, I'm not saying that's how Eve was, but that's how I was as a player with Eve. And so it always felt like it had such promise, but I just wasn't sure how to make it all click. And I kind of have that feeling about Elite Dangerous now as well. there's so much going on in it, and there's these plantoid aliens that are attacking now. And there's, one of the coolest things I think that I saw was these aliens could attack a star base. I don't remember what to call it, guys, but a star base that the places that you dock at, and just absolutely wreck shop on it. And that star base can be rebuilt over time, but it depends on the players. The players have to haul in the parts to let the NPCs will do the work, but they won't do the work if they're out of materials. That's kind of the way that I understand it. So it's up to the players, those who do a lot of trade, and they do space trucking, and they haul items from one place to another. It's up to players to get into ships and bring materials to these star bases, and then over time you'll see them uh, restore that base, and services will start to come back online, and you'll have a certain percentage of restoration that shows up, if I remember correctly. That kind of stuff I think is really neat, and it excites me, because it's cooperative, and it puts a responsibility on the player. And then there's different factions that you can join, and you can grind up reputation with them and get into different kinds of ships and stuff. And like Eve, they have a few different sorts of, I guess, things that you can do. I forget what it's called now, but you can join, in essence, what's like faction warfare, basically, or you can start fighting these plantoid alien things, or you can just be a freelancer and you're working for certain companies or something like that. You can decide what you want to be. You have ratings and exploration and combat and economics, I think, or maybe it's called trade, that your guy will level up in as you partake in those kinds of things. It's pretty neat, but at the same time, it feels like it's not really pulled together into a solid one narrative. If I don't know how to describe this, it feels very loosey goosey to me, and so I don't know. The potential is there, but we'll see how things develop in the future. One last thing, and then we'll wrap this up, is that where Eve is PvP centric, I think Elite is more PvE centric. And you guys who've watched any of my Eve Online videos, you know that I'm more of a PvE person. I am more of a lone wolf solo person. And so it occurs to me that really Elite should fit me better, but I haven't figured it out yet. The other thing is that I have a really good friend who plays this game, and my brother plays it on PlayStation, and we are hoping that at the end of 2020, there is a big project going on with Elite Dangerous that they say they're going to announce at the end of 2020, and we're really hoping that it's cross-platform so that me and my brother can team up. Well, again, those of you who have watched my Eve Online series, I've explained that I'm not really so much of a lone wolf, antisocial type, so much as I am a small group. I like small groups, one or two people, maybe three for a team of four. And if I'm not doing that, then I'd really kind of just, my preference oftentimes is to be on my own, because these games act as like a time for me to wind down from the rigors of work, where I have been around a lot of people and stuff like that. So I guess I don't do it. I don't feel like I do it in an antisocial way, but I guess what I'm getting at is that I tend to be more of a lone wolf type player. And then if I'm going to group, I prefer that to be a small group of the same people, consistently, so that over time you sort of grow into a good team. And Elite Dangerous, because I have a really good friend that's in this game already, although he doesn't get to play it very often. And then I have my brother, who is on PlayStation. seems to present a better opportunity for that. But as far as how I tick, but I just, this is going to be very much exploration based. So I think with that, we'll go ahead and call it an episode. That's about 20 minutes for an intro, and I think that's enough. So again, I am Aesop Grimm. I want to say thank you for coming by the channel, and I look forward to seeing you guys in future episodes as this story continues. Thanks for visiting Aesop Grimm's Chronicles. If you've made it this far in the video, please consider rating, commenting, subscribing, and sharing. I hope to see you in the next episode, and until then, stay shiny.